we are marching right along an X-Cutioner song with part 3 in X-Men issue 14. And this issue stands out for me because this was one of the first, like, I guess you could say, mainstream X-Men comics I saw as a kid. And I've said this before, where, what is it called? I was collecting the X-Men Adventures because I got turned on to the X-Men from the animated series. So I bought the comics because they followed the cartoon, essentially. And when I saw my friend reading, it was the later issues. I think it was X-Force. It was one of the early later ones where Bishop, Cable, and Wolverine are fighting, and Logan's hunched over and he's all torn up, and he's like, lungs are punctured. I'll be fine in a minute. I was like, wow, that's intense. So it made me go back, and this was one of the first ones I picked up. And I don't know about y'all, but this particular issue, this panel right here, has always stuck with me, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and start off with Finger on the Trigger. If you're just now joining us, as the synopsis says, Professor Xavier, infected by a techno-organic virus. Spoiler alerts, by the way. The man who shot him, Cable, Cyclops and Jean Grey, kidnapped by the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. X-Force on the run. The X-Cutioner song continues. And I remember seeing Xavier like this when I was a kid. And, oh man, that just did something to me. I was like, whoa, that's intense. Because they sort of touched on the techno-organic virus in the show, but not like they did. Now this is Fabian Nicieza writing, Mark Pennington doing the ink. Who the hell's doing the pencils? Oh, an exciting welcome aboard to Andy Kubert Hensler. And this is really where I got introduced to the Kuberts, was through X-Men. Lois Buhalis doing the lettering, Mary Javins doing the colors, Bob Harris was the editor, and Tom DeFalco, editor-chief. It says he's not getting any better, afraid to say. Not even the mansion's alien Shi'ar medical equipment is making a dent in his condition. You have to believe we can make a difference, Hank. This is Moira talking. I'm not the defeatist type, but quite frankly, I'm open to suggestions. Because if we don't do something soon, Charles Xavier is going to die. And this goes back to where I talk about when you first open up a comic, it should be your first comic book. You should not feel totally lost. I mean, obviously, you're going to feel a little bit like what's going on, but there should be enough here to get you interested to read this issue and then continue, and you guys know what I'm trying to say. I haven't had enough coffee today, but you all get my drift. And right there with that little synopsis, and with Hank and Moira talking, and just this horrific photo of Xavier flatlining almost, is a way to just pull you into it. And Moira and Beast are stumped, and they're saying that, if we can't figure it out, then what's, Reed Richards or someone else that's along those lines going to be able to come up. So I love this as Storm, Valerie, and Havoc are walking away. We get this silhouetted version, just this very dramatic dark blues, just this very somber moment. And Alex says, so what do we tell the others? Tell them the truth, Alex. Tell them at best Professor X is still alive, and that we better find a cure. Which leads me into this panel, which, as I said, has stuck with me forever and ever. It says, they stand grimly, yet with pride. These children of the atom, awaiting to hear the news on their mentor's condition. They represent the dream of Charles Xavier, past, present, and future. The X-Men, Iceman, Colossus, Psylocke, Archangel, Bishop, Gambit, Rogue, Jubilee, and Wolverine. The government-sponsored X-Factor, Quicksilver, Madrox, Strong Guy, Polaris, and Wolfsbane. Because up to this point, Fabian Nicieza, Jim Lee at the time, and Scott Liddell had big shoes to fill with everything that Chris Claremont had set up leading into this new era. And that's why I'll always give Scott Liddell props for being able to take that and carry it all the way into the 2000s. And I just love how Cable's just standing there. Or not Cable, what's his name? Bishop? He goes, well, he's stable. I'm afraid that's all we can expect for now. We have to find a way to save him, and that means finding Cable. And so they're saying, let's separate the gold team and the blue team. And of course, I just like this little nod. I mean, it's simple dialogue. Beast comes in and says, in anticipating the division along pre-established team parameters, I would prefer joining the gold team in the search of the horsemen. If Apocalypse is involved, Warren, Bobby, and I had the most experience dealing with them. Just that little tidbit of dialogue, Scott Liddell has harkened back to everything that Claremont, not Claremont, because Claremont didn't have a lot to do with X Factor, but at least encompasses everything that Louise Simonson and I probably get his name wrong, but I think it was Bob Lawton that started X Factor, and just bringing it all full circle there, just that little bit dialogue. And then Storm is saying, the remainder of you will search for X-Force and Cable. And Bishop says, I will stay here. And I've always loved how they always called Storm the Wind Rider. There's just something about that name that's badass. And every time that it's used in the right context and not try to be silly or loose with it, it just shows the type of respect that Storm commands. When she took over after Cyclops left with Madeline, powerless, and carried the X-Men through the Australian outback, and even defeated Cyclops to show that she was the right leader for the team. And so she's able to say, well, don't you think that's I do not think that's necessary, Bishop. And we can see how, because Bishop's from that post-apocalyptic future, he's part of the XSC. And so all these people that he is teamed up with are legends to him. And he says, whoever attempted to murder Charles may try to do so again. I will not fail in protecting him, protecting his dream a second time. Now, this right here is something that I want to point out. So this is the MLF. This is Forearms, and I cannot remember this guy's name. Don't even ask me. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they are meeting with Mr. Sinister. And he goes, where the heck is this Phoebe? This Phoebe, as you so charmingly call him, has been here longer than you suspected. Mr. Sinister, I presume? Where is my package? Where are the bodies? Why, they've been here all along as well. Jean Grey and Scott Summers, they are yours. In exchange for the materials your employer guaranteed I will receive. And so, yeah, this is the 90s. Let's keep this in mind. So there are some dialogue where you're just kind of like, ugh. So Zero shows up and he goes, Zero Express, when it absolutely has to be there. So FedEx commercial. And he goes, this is the genetic matrix that is contained inside that canister. If the boss agrees to a trade, he comes through on his end. You are free to go then with your lives. And those of Scott Summers and Jean Grey as well. Good riddance to you all, for I have received the better end of this bargain by far. I now have a piece of the future, and I shall shake the ever-shifting foundations of mutant kind forevermore. So you're wondering, why the hell did I just read all that to you? Rant time. Sorry, it has to be done. Let's go back to Krakoa, and I think it was the Hellions. And I think it was X-Force as well. But Mr. Sinister is now just kind of like this. He reminds me, the way that he's portrayed in Krakoa reminds me very much of Johnny Depp in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where he's just kind of like, good morning, Starshine. The sun says hello. And he's just like this schizophrenic, weird, flamboyant character. Hello, me. Oh, hi, me. Good, me. You are so gorgeous. I know, me. What about you, me? Yeah, I'm just so spectacular. And it shows him in all these silly outfits like it's some sort of stupid fashion montage. That was essentially why I think I gave up Hellions, because Mr. Sinister was the one that created Madeline Pryor, and man, did he screw her life around. And so to just kind of make him a joke, no. After you see, he's more of this debonair villain like Sebastian Shaw, where he maybe think he's nice, but then he has you see the inflection behind his words, especially when he says you're free to go then with your lives, and those of Scott Summers and Jean Grey as well. And we'll go more into that, but I just wanted to point out that's why when people are like, why you shit on Krakoa? That's why I shit on Krakoa. Now, X-Force is on the run, obviously because Cable is their leader, so they know that they are in hot pursuit. Their ship's starting to go down because the fight with X-Factor in the previous issue. And I just love how we see Sam going from, if you go back to the Claremont McLeod days to the Claremont Sienkiewicz and moving onward. Remember how Sam, even though he was co-leaders with Danny, you could always see that even though he was hardened by working in the coal mines in Kentucky, he was still reluctant to be the leader because he didn't want to make the wrong choice. And that's why him and Danny leaned on each other really hard, and he leaned heavy into Berto as well. But here, ship's going down, and Boom Boom's just like, I knew this stupid bucket wouldn't make it back to Arizona. Come on, Boomer. We should feel blessed that the IPAC unit and all of us were able to walk away from our fight with X-Factor at all. This baby's taking too many hits. We're going to land hard unless we do something. And just the seriousness in Sam's face, like you do not see the young boy anymore. Rick, follow you, Sam. Try to angle your vibrate wave along the lines of our descent. Yeah, sure, Sam, no problem. Ask me to work on that world peace thing while I'm at it. So you just see how people just follow Sam because he has that innate leadershipness, like Scott and Havoc. Now, also, spoilers if you've not been following along. Allegedly, Apocalypse was the one that took Jean and Scott. And so everyone's hunting for Apocalypse. And yet it says here, now listen to the way that this is written. Egypt, 25 miles northwest of, and if I mispronounce this, I apologize, Banai Manza. Millennia ago, the ancients came to this place of worship, beseeching distant gods for guidance and their succor to ease their troubled lives. And we see this, but those ancients are long dead, their gods dust. And for centuries, all has been silent in Banai Manza, till now. And 9 supplicants of a new religion, 9 mutants called the Dark Riders, witnessed the rebirth of their god. It's too soon. Why has Apocalypse been awakened in an unfinished state of organ coherence? And he lashes out at the Dark Riders. But then someone's saying, Summers and Gray have been kidnapped, and the deed was performed by your vassals and in your name. And so you see how Apocalypse now comes into the fray. Now this team, I believe this is supposed to be the blue team, is after X-Force. And I just love how it's just this weird hodgepodge. You know, Strong Guy, the more smart mouth one. Lorna, the more, I'd say, stable head on her shoulders. Rain, still kind of green, but has seen some shit since the Extinction agenda. And what's it called? Farrell's having a discussion with Remy. She goes, I cannot agree with what you're saying, Gambit. The ends can never justify the means. If the methods taken to get to that place are unethical, hard times will require hard methods, eh? That's easier said than done. Come on now, Sherry. What exactly has X-Force done in the time they've been together that's been so different than what we do? We don't go around assassinating people for one thing, my friend. Cable took it upon himself to shoot the professor, and you defend him? How can you be so indifferent? Really separate the soldiers from the general, Saul. I wonder how the soldiers could let the general turn them this cold, this hard. Maybe it ain't Cable that's turned them this way, darling. Maybe it's just the way the world that did it. Maybe the dream is dead. Maybe we should all pretend it. That's some heavy writing right there to just show how Cable has really tried to harden his soldiers and how it's starting to show. But I like the moment of levity because they're having this sort of deep conversation that Havoc says, we found them. Saddle up, people. They're sitting ducks. And I miss when Gambit and Rambi would smoke together. There's just something about it that would make it look badass. And I hate that Joe Quesada basically axed that out of comics because they had to be more kid friendly. Now that's like, okay, we're going on a little anecdote. I apologize. 70, Gen X and I guess the Zennials, whatever. We grew up in a badass time because our heroes smoked, they talked, they were stern, they were strong, whether male or female, and we looked up to them. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is another example. And our parents really screwed the pooch on a lot of franchises that really could keep going instead of having to try to reboot, i.e., how they took away the smoking from Wolverine and Gambit. That's my personal opinion. How they took the weapons away from Ninja Turtles and Secret of the Ooze, and how Batman Forever basically became Batman 66 once again after Batman Returns. And I think it was Minty on YouTube where he was talking about things you didn't know. And I can't remember if it was Ninja Turtles or I think it was Batman Returns. And they basically said that the movies needed to change because the toys needed to be more toyetic, meaning it had to be more friendly to kids because parents were offended by Batman Returns and having to buy those action figures at McDonald's. And so everything just slowly started watering down. To kind of bring my whole point back is the comics we kind of suffered because they kind of watered it down as well. So this was one of the, besides Fatal Attractions and a couple of others like the Age of Apocalypse, we had a badass childhood with badass heroes and badass villains. God, do I miss that. I'm kind of glad that in a degree it's kind of come back, but not the way that it was consistently, monthly, month to month in every book that you would read. But anyway, now to kind of make my point, I like this moment of levity is Havoc saying saddle up. You just see Remy and Gambit sitting there and everyone's just like, and Gambit and Logan just do not. Now, 3 books, and we finally see Cable. And this is kind of where that Cable miniseries came along, or his standalone title. So where he's been, make sure to go read that. I think I did issue 1, so I'll have to go back and check. If I did, I'll leave a card up here. But anyway, he's talking to Gray Malkin. This is before Magneto made it to Avalon. And he's like, I don't remember Xavier being assassinated in any of the history books. Who's the perpetrator? And Gray Malkin says, where does he say? He says, well, regardless of the illogical nature and evidence presented, hear that you did. And we just, no more, just dun dun dun. And now we see that Bishop has been guarding night and day. Jubilee tries to say, have some coffee and just take a moment, let the mansion's security do its work. Like, I'm not going to fail in my mission. And it takes her child naivete to finally get him to relax. But then before he can breathe, the alarms go off. And we get back to Mr. Sinister. I love this dialogue. He breaks into the mansion. I don't have time to suffer the amenities of hallways. Do I make myself clear? Good morning, Mr. Bishop. As I've already explained to Miss Cooper and Miss Hunter, I have not come to praise Charles Xavier, but to bury. So I just love that little Julius Caesar nod, using it in the comics. Again, these are our modern day mythos. So to nod back to people watching Julius Caesar or Ben-Hur, I love how our writers took those and made them, used a lot of the heaviness of that into these comics to help us, give us something to make our new mythos and histories on. Bury him for the sins of his failures. Would you care to be counted among those sins? Would you care to die? And now again, going back to Sam and everybody growing up, I love how Psylocke here says, are you saying these children plan to ambush us? Stop thinking of them as kids' bets. We're up against soldiers. And they get blindsided. And I love how Sam says, we don't want to fight, folks. But as you can see, if that's the choice you want to make, X-Force is more than ready to give you one. This is the type of art and storytelling that I miss regularly in comic books. Yes, I've seen some books starting to get better, like Rogue and the Savage Lamb, but I don't feel like it's consistent enough yet to where books would fly off the shelves like they used to. I mean, yes, they've always had books that were still good writing, but it didn't sell as well. And I don't know if that's just a marketing problem. But if you look back at like John Byrne's She-Hulk, excellent run if you go back and read it, but it didn't sell very well. And I love the meta joke of how the first issue said that if my book doesn't sell, I'm going to come to your house and tear up all your X-Men comics. And then her final issue, she goes, give me all of them X-Men comics. And it was just a nice little way to joke with the fans, but at the same time saying, come on, I'm trying to make something good. I don't feel that in comics anymore, and I miss it. And going back, I just fills me, as they said in Demolition Man, with those joy feelings of nostalgia. Damn, this is a good series, and I'm glad that we're finally going over it. So if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is that you get your action figures and comics, and pick up this series either in the single trades. If you can still get them polybagged with the trading card, hell yeah. If not, take a look online and see if you can find these collected trades. It is worth it. That's why I'm glad I picked this up for my local library, so I don't have to go digging all my individual issues out. Now, if you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little X-Force bell next to subscribe, that was it gets you upload content. You guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I'd love to talk with you on hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.